On a fateful vacation journey to the stunning shores of Hawaii, a terrifying crisis unfolded in the cockpit as both the pilot and co-pilot succumbed to sudden unconsciousness. Amidst the growing dread and palpable fear that swept through the cabin, there emerged a glimmer of improbable hope: a 12-year-old boy named Jake. His astonishing bravery and sheer. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell to avoid missing any videos. On a fateful vacation journey to the breathtaking island paradise of Hawaii, a terrifying calamity struck as the pilot and co-pilot collapsed into unconsciousness, leaving the passengers engulfed in sheer panic and desperation. In this harrowing moment of chaos and uncertainty, the only flicker of hope came from an unlikely source: a 12-year-old boy named Jake. What Jake accomplished in that nerve-wracking moment left everyone in utter disbelief and awe. Jake had always found himself most alive and invigorated when he sat in front of his computer, fully immersed in the intricate and exhilarating world of flight simulators. The dazzling glow of the screen, the meticulously detailed control panels, and the sensation of being at the helm of an airplane transported him far beyond the confines of his modest, small-town existence. To Jake, these simulations were not merely games; they represented a portal to the boundless sky, a tantalizing glimpse into the future he had always aspired to reach. In that moment of extraordinary crisis, Jake's passion and dedication transformed into an unexpected beacon of hope, demonstrating that even the most unlikely heroes can rise to the occasion when it matters most. Despite Jake's undeniable passion for flight simulators, his parents, Tom and Sarah, saw his obsession through very different lenses. Tom, a man of few words with a no-nonsense attitude, viewed the games as a significant distraction from what he considered more meaningful and productive pursuits. To him, Jake's fervor for the virtual cockpit seemed like an escape from reality, rather than a constructive use of his time. Tom, ever practical and concerned about his son's future, believed that Jake would be better served by engaging in activities that offered tangible benefits, such as studying diligently or participating in organized sports. He often expressed his worries with a sense of frustration and urgency. "Jake, you're spending far too much time on that computer," Tom would admonish, his voice tinged with a mixture of concern and exasperation. "This isn't real life. You need to step outside, play with your friends, and get involved in activities that contribute to your growth and development." In stark contrast, Sarah, while also concerned about Jake's excessive screen time, approached the situation with a more understanding and empathetic viewpoint. She observed the sheer joy and exhilaration in Jake's eyes whenever he was engrossed in his flight simulators, and recognized that these games were more than just a pastime; they were a reflection of Jake's deep-seated dreams and aspirations. Sarah saw these virtual adventures as a window into Jake's imagination and a means for him to explore his future ambitions. Still, she couldn't completely dismiss the importance of balance in his life. "Tom, he's just a child, and this is a way for him to dream and explore," she would gently counter, her tone soft yet firm. "It's important to let him have these moments of joy. But Jake, perhaps it would be wise to find a middle ground. Spend some time outdoors, engage with your peers, and try to build a balance between your passions and other aspects of life." Sarah's perspective sought to harmonize the differing views within the family, aiming to nurture Jake's enthusiasm while also encouraging him to cultivate a well-rounded lifestyle. She believed that by blending her understanding with Tom's practicality, they could support Jake's dreams without losing sight of the need for real-world experiences and social interactions. Through this balanced approach, Sarah hoped to bridge the gap between Tom's concern for Jake's future and Jake's desire to explore his passions, ultimately finding a way to honor both perspectives and foster a nurturing environment for Jake's growth. Jake, however, discovered a profound sense of freedom within the virtual realms of his flight simulator that eluded him in his everyday life. In the immersive world of the game, he was not just a player but the esteemed commander, tasked with making every crucial decision and executing each precise maneuver. The simulator offered him an exhilarating sense of control and responsibility, a stark contrast to his reality. Jake delved deeply into the intricacies of aviation, poring over manuals with a fervor that spoke to his dedication. He meticulously studied aerodynamics, emergency protocols, and complex navigation systems, all with a singular dream in mind to become a real pilot one day. Despite his intense commitment and the genuine excitement he felt, Jake was acutely aware that his parents dismissed his dream as nothing more than a fleeting fantasy. To Tom and Sarah, Jake's aspirations appeared to be a passing phase, a transient fascination that would soon fade. This lack of support began to create an emotional chasm between Jake and his parents, as his immersion in the world of flight simulators became increasingly isolating. Tom's patience grew thin, his frustration more evident as he grappled with Jake's relentless focus on the game. Meanwhile, Sarah, despite her empathetic nature, struggled to conceal her growing anxiety. She recognized Jake's passion but was deeply concerned about the implications of his excessive screen time on his overall well-being. "Jake, you can't spend the entire day fixated on that simulator," Sarah would say, her voice a blend of tenderness and firmness. "It's not healthy to be so consumed by it. You need to find a balance, to engage with the world beyond your screen." Her words, while meant to guide and support, were tinged with an undertone of worry, reflecting the strain the situation was placing on their family dynamics. The growing disconnect between Jake's immersive dream world and his parents' concerns highlighted the complex struggle of reconciling passion with practical reality, as the family navigated the challenging waters of supporting Jake's ambitions while addressing their fears and expectations. "But Mom, I'm learning. This is important to me," Jake would assert, his voice tinged with a blend of frustration and a desperate need to be heard. His words were laced with a profound sense of urgency, as if he were trying to convey that this wasn't merely a pastime but a deep-seated calling. Inside, he felt that this was more than just a game. It was a manifestation of his dreams, a passion that resonated with the core of who he was. While navigating through virtual takeoffs and landings, Jake clung to the hope of one day piloting a real plane. He envisioned himself soaring through the skies, executing maneuvers with the same precision and confidence he displayed in the simulator. Yet this dream seemed to grow ever more distant, overshadowed by the practical concerns and expectations of his family. As he continued his solitary journey between the realms of his aspirations and the demands of reality, Jake held on to the belief that there would come a time when he could bridge these two worlds. He yearned to demonstrate to his parents and himself that dreams weren't just ephemeral illusions, but tangible goals that could soar to unimaginable heights. That Saturday morning, the Johnson household was enveloped in an almost palpable tension. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken words and underlying stress. Jake, his eyes heavy with fatigue yet bright with a hint of satisfaction, descended the stairs with a faint, determined smile playing on his lips. The previous night had been spent engrossed in a particularly challenging mission on his flight simulator, a rare opportunity to attempt a night landing amidst adverse conditions. For Jake, this was not merely a game, but a significant test of his skills, a way to validate his abilities and reaffirm his dreams of becoming a real pilot. The simulator was his battleground, and each successful mission was a small victory against the skepticism and constraints of his everyday life. As Jake walked into the kitchen, the warmth of his smile quickly dissipated upon meeting the stern, disapproving gaze of his father, Tom. Tom was already seated at the table, his posture rigid and his expression hard. Sarah, who was busy preparing breakfast, glanced back and forth between the two men with a look of deep concern, sensing the mounting tension in the room. "Jake, we need to talk," Tom began, his voice stern and unwavering. The words struck Jake like a cold wind, causing him to shift nervously on his feet, feeling as though he were rooted to the spot. Tom didn't wait for a reply. pressing on with a level of impatience. "You spent the entire night on that computer again, didn't you? This is unacceptable, Jake. I've told you time and again that these games are not a reflection of real life. The world outside isn't controlled by a keyboard and mouse." Jake's attempts to explain were quickly swallowed by the rising tide of his anxiety. He knew from experience that any defense he offered would likely fall on deaf ears. The mix of frustration and sadness swelling within him felt like a heavy stone weighing down his spirit. To Jake, the simulators were not just a means of escape, but a crucial step toward his dream of becoming a pilot. "Dad, I was just practicing," Jake said, striving to keep his voice steady, but failing to mask the growing tremor of anxiety. "I want to learn this. It might be important for my future." Tom's face remained unyielding, his resolve evident in every furrow of his brow. "No," Jake said firmly, his voice leaving no room for negotiation. "This has to stop. I'm prohibiting you from using the computer to play these games. You need to concentrate on things that truly matter: your studies and your health. I won't permit you to squander any more time on these illusions." His words were heavy with finality, casting a shadow over Jake's aspirations and leaving him to grapple with the chasm growing ever wider between his dreams and the reality imposed by his father. The words Tom spoke hit Jake with the force of a heavy blow, leaving him reeling from their impact. His gaze shifted towards Sarah, searching for a glimmer of support or understanding, but what he saw in her eyes only deepened his sense of isolation. Her look was tinged with concern, a reflection of her worries about the excessive time Jake spent on the computer. Sarah, though more sympathetic to Jake's passion, was caught in the difficult position of trying to mediate between her husband's stern stance and her son's dreams. "Tom, perhaps we can find some middle ground here," Sarah suggested, her voice carrying a tone of diplomacy as she sought to ease the tension. "I understand that Jake is deeply invested in the simulators, but maybe we can establish a time limit for him to play. This way, he can also engage in other activities." Tom's sigh was laden with frustration, but he reluctantly conceded. "All right," he said, his tone begrudgingly accepting Sarah's compromise. "But there's one condition: the games cannot interfere with his studies or social interactions. From now on, Jake can only use the computer for gaming on weekends and must adhere to a strict time limit." Jake, his heart a turbulent mix of relief and disappointment, nodded slowly. While the compromise was a small victory, it was far from the ideal scenario he had hoped for. He couldn't shake the feeling that a significant rift had opened between him and his parents, a rift fueled by misunderstanding and a lack of support for his dreams of becoming a pilot. The emotional distance between them seemed to grow, marked by an invisible but palpable barrier. Sarah looked at Jake with a blend of gentle affection and concern. "Jake," she said softly, her voice carrying a hint of reassurance, "we understand how much this means to you. But your father is right, there's a whole world out there you need to explore as well. Maybe if you show us how committed you are to other aspects of your life, your parents will come to see just how important this dream is to you." Her words were intended to bridge the gap between Jake's aspirations and the practicalities imposed by his parents, hoping to create a pathway where his passion could coexist with a well-rounded approach to life. Jake nodded once more, but within him, a tempest of emotions raged fiercely. He was determined to demonstrate that his dream was far more than a mere childish whim, yet he couldn't shake the feeling of profound isolation in his quest. As he pushed back from the table and made his way to his room, Jake resolved silently that he would find a way to reach for the skies, even if it meant navigating that journey alone. The arrival of summer brought a welcome reprieve for the Johnson family, an opportunity to step away from their everyday routines and the escalating tensions that had become a regular feature of their lives. Tom and Sarah decided it was time for a much-needed escape, choosing Hawaii as their destination, an idyllic getaway they had long fantasized about. Despite the excitement surrounding their vacation, the undercurrent of unresolved tension between Jake and his father persisted, an ever-present, subtle reminder of the discord that simmered beneath the surface. At the bustling airport, the air was thick with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. Jake, caught in the limbo between excitement for the trip and anxiety about being separated from his beloved simulators, struggled to manage his conflicting emotions. The thought of leaving behind the virtual cockpit he had come to cherish weighed heavily on him. While he recognized that this trip could serve as a chance to mend his strained relationships and reconnect with his family, his longing for the freedom of flight, whether real or virtual, was never far from his mind. The journey to Hawaii promised new experiences and moments of togetherness, but Jake's heart remained tethered to his dreams of soaring through the skies, casting a shadow over the excitement of the adventure that lay ahead. As the moment to board the plane approached, Jake's excitement and curiosity were almost palpable. He couldn't keep his eyes off the crew, especially the pilots, who moved with a precision and grace that captivated him. Each action, from the careful arrangement of equipment to the deliberate checks and adjustments, felt like part of an intricate performance, one where every step, every motion, was meticulously choreographed. Jake marveled at how the crew operated with such harmony, their movements seamless and purposeful. When he finally reached the cockpit, Jake's heart raced with a mixture of awe and anticipation. He peered inside, his eyes wide with wonder as they scanned the array of controls, screens, and instruments that adorned the cockpit. The sight was both familiar and exhilaratingly complex, like stepping into a world he had only previously explored through his games. The layout, while echoing the simulations he had mastered, presented an intricate reality he was eager to comprehend. The multitude of buttons, levers, and dials seemed to pulse with potential, each one holding the promise of mastery and adventure. As he stood there, transfixed, the pilot noticed Jake's intense gaze and offered a warm, welcoming smile. The pilot's eyes sparkled with a blend of understanding and encouragement. "Would you like to be a pilot someday?" the pilot asked, his voice carrying a tone of genuine interest and friendliness. The question struck a chord deep within Jake, and his face lit up with a broad, excited smile. He nodded enthusiastically, unable to contain the surge of hope and determination bubbling within him. The pilot's response was both inspiring and reassuring. "Then you should study hard and never give up on your dreams," he said, his words imbued with sincerity and motivation. He offered Jake an encouraging glance before turning back to his preparations, his demeanor leaving a lasting impression on the young boy. Jake's heart swelled with a renewed sense of purpose as he made his way to his seat. He felt a rush of exhilaration as the plane's engines roared to life, the vibrations of the aircraft sending a thrill through his body. Settling into his seat, he gazed out the window, watching with bated breath as the ground receded and the plane began its ascent. The sky, once a distant dream, now stretched out before him in an expansive, breathtaking panorama. As the plane climbed higher, the horizon seemed to open up endlessly, a vast expanse of possibilities that mirrored Jake's aspirations. Each passing moment reinforced his belief in the dream he had nurtured for so long. The view from the window, with its ever-expanding canvas of clouds and distant horizons, seemed to echo his inner vision, a vision of one day soaring through the skies as a pilot. Jake's thoughts swirled with excitement and determination, fueled by the pilot's encouraging words and the exhilarating experience of flight. He knew that this journey was more than just a vacation. It was a powerful reminder of his passion and a reaffirmation of his commitment to making his dream a reality. The soaring view outside, with its infinite potential, was a testament to the boundless opportunities that lay ahead, inspiring Jake to continue pursuing his dreams with unwavering resolve. As the plane ascended gracefully into the sky and the passengers began to settle into their seats, the hum of the aircraft and the soft chatter of fellow travelers became a soothing backdrop to Jake's thoughts. The in-flight service started, but Jake's attention remained riveted on the cockpit and its myriad components, which had imprinted themselves indelibly on his memory. Every detail, from the intricate array of controls to the rhythmic beeps and flashing lights, replayed vividly in his mind. The cockpit, which had previously existed only in the realm of his simulation games, was now a tangible reality, heightening his sense of wonder and excitement. Tom and Sarah observed their son with a blend of emotions. Tom, who had been skeptical about Jake's passion for flight simulators, found himself unable to ignore the twinkle in Jake's eyes, a rare sight that spoke volumes about his son's genuine enthusiasm. It was a look Tom had rarely seen, and it stirred a flicker of admiration in him. Sarah, ever the peacemaker, held on to the hope that this trip might offer a fresh perspective for everyone, perhaps leading to a greater understanding of Jake's aspirations. As the aircraft cruised over the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, Jake allowed himself to be enveloped by the serene ambience of the flight. Yet his mind was far from the tranquil surroundings. He envisioned himself seated in the cockpit, hands deftly maneuvering the controls of the enormous machine. It was as though he could almost feel the weight of the yoke in his grasp and hear the hum of the engines beneath him. This vivid imagination, fueled by the visual and sensory experiences from earlier, brought him an unparalleled sense of fulfillment and tranquility. Among the clouds and under the expansive blue sky, Jake felt a profound sense of peace, a stark contrast to the internal conflicts and pressures he had faced at home. It was as if, in that moment of flight, he was drawing closer to his dream with every passing mile. The journey to Hawaii was rapidly transforming from a mere vacation into something far more significant. It symbolized the beginning of a transformative experience, one that might not only shape the course of his summer, but also chart the trajectory of his future. For Jake, this trip was rapidly becoming a pivotal chapter in his life, a tangible step toward realizing his dreams. The experience of being in the sky, so close to his aspirations, was both invigorating and inspiring. He embraced the fleeting moments of this flight with the hope that they would propel him toward his goals, turning his dreams of piloting into a promising reality. The flight to Hawaii, which had seemed like an idyllic adventure for Jake, suddenly turned into a nightmarish reality. What began as a dreamlike journey through the sky quickly morphed into a high-stakes crisis. The unimaginable unfolded before Jake's eyes. Both the pilot and co-pilot collapsed, succumbing to a sudden and alarming medical emergency. Panic spread through the cabin like wildfire, casting a shadow of fear and uncertainty over the passengers. The flight attendants, struggling to maintain order amidst the chaos, did their best to reassure everyone, but the gravity of the situation was undeniable. Amidst the turmoil, Jake found himself thrust into an extraordinary and surreal role. At just 12 years old, he was suddenly confronted with the gravity of the moment, his heart pounding with a blend of fear and adrenaline. His extensive practice with flight simulators, a hobby that had been dismissed as a mere pastime by some, was now thrust into the spotlight as his sole asset in this critical situation. The head flight attendant, her face etched with concern and desperation, approached Jake. Her voice wavered as she asked, "Do you have any experience with flying?" The question was both urgent and laden with hope. Despite the surge of anxiety welling up inside him, Jake managed to respond with a semblance of confidence. "I've been practicing on flight simulators," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. The flight attendants, driven by a desperate need for a solution, quickly decided to let Jake try his hand at piloting. With a heart full of trepidation yet bolstered by determination, Jake moved toward the cockpit. The surreal nature of the situation almost felt like a dream one, where the controls he had only ever manipulated virtually were now in his literal grasp. Every button and lever, every dial that had once been part of a simulation, was now an integral part of his reality. The weight of responsibility was immense, pressing heavily on his young shoulders. Jake took a deep breath, steeling himself as he began to navigate the cockpit. His hands trembled ever so slightly, a physical manifestation of the intense pressure he was under, but his mind was resolute and focused. Drawing upon the knowledge and procedures he had painstakingly learned from his simulator sessions, he methodically began to follow the emergency protocols. The cockpit, once a realm of fascination and aspiration, had now become a critical arena where every decision mattered. As Jake communicated with air traffic control, he meticulously adhered to the instructions outlined in the emergency manual. Time seemed to stretch endlessly, each moment an eternity of concentration and effort. Despite the overwhelming circumstances, Jake's calm demeanor and steady approach kept the plane on a course of stability. His actions, driven by a blend of learned skill and raw determination, began to weave a fragile thread of hope amidst the chaos. In that harrowing moment, as the hours dragged on, Jake's courage and expertise became a beacon of calm for both the flight crew and passengers. What had once been a realm of digital simulations and virtual flights had transformed into a battleground of real-life stakes, where Jake's resolve and training were tested to their limits. Through the storm of panic and fear, Jake's unwavering focus and commitment emerged as a testament to the power of dedication and the strength found in the most unexpected places. Eventually, Jake, against all odds, succeeded in guiding the plane to a safe and secure landing. The immense relief and jubilant cheers from the passengers were palpable, echoing throughout the cabin. What had been a heart-stopping ordeal now transformed into a moment of collective triumph. The atmosphere was electric with gratitude and awe, and Jake's parents, who had spent the harrowing minutes anxiously awaiting news, were overwhelmed by a profound mix of emotions. Tom, who had once been skeptical and dismissive of Jake's passion, stood with tears streaming down his face. The weight of the moment was heavy, and he could barely contain his emotions. With an embrace that conveyed both apology and admiration, he held Jake tightly. "I was wrong about you, son," Tom said, his voice choked with emotion and reverence. "You showed us something truly extraordinary today." The sincerity in his words was unmistakable, reflecting a deep and heartfelt recognition of Jake's bravery and skill. Sarah, equally moved, looked at her son with a mixture of pride and astonishment. Her eyes glistened with tears of joy as she spoke, her voice trembling slightly. "You were amazing, Jake. You saved us all," she said, her words carrying the weight of immense pride and love. The pride she felt was evident, and it was clear that Jake's heroic actions had touched her deeply. For Jake, the exhaustion was profound, but it was overshadowed by an overwhelming sense of fulfillment and accomplishment. The dream he had nurtured for so long had materialized most unexpectedly and dramatically. The flight simulators that had once been a mere hobby had now become a testament to his abilities. The experience had not only validated his passion, but also forged a new understanding and connection with his parents. The vacation, which had started as a simple getaway, had transformed into a pivotal, life-changing event. Jake's once dismissed aspiration of becoming a pilot was now seen through a new lens of potential reality rather than a fleeting fantasy. The skies, which had always been a distant dream, had opened up to him in ways he had never imagined. With a heart full of newfound purpose and the support of his family, Jake was ready to embrace his future with unwavering determination and optimism. The experience had bridged the gap between his dreams and his reality, and he was prepared to soar to new heights, both literally and metaphorically. As we wrap up this incredible story, we've witnessed how a passion, once dismissed as mere fantasy, can transform into a life-changing reality through dedication and courage. Jake's journey from his initial struggles and dreams of becoming a pilot to heroically landing a plane in a crisis shows us the power of perseverance, belief in oneself, and the impact of following our passions. We'd love to hear from you. What have you learned from Jake's inspiring journey? Is there a lesson from his story that you plan to apply to your own life? Share your thoughts and the one key takeaway you'll bring into your daily practices in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support helps us bring more inspiring content to you. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.